Of all the lessons that Republicans need to learn, maybe the most important one, at least this week, is don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Don't blast a compromise that is a win because it's not everything you wanted. And as I predicted, and I shouldn't predict ever, but I did, Kevin McCarthy scored a major victory over Biden's White House this week. And the House overwhelmingly passed the debt ceiling compromise. Yes, it was a compromise. Biden wasn't inclined to compromise on anything. I did a lot of listening yesterday. There are people like Steve Bannon. I really like Steve Bannon a lot. Charlie Kirk. I really like Charlie. You'd have thought that the entire world was coming to an end because House Republicans, led by Kevin McCarthy, came up with a compromise to lead to, well, as Kellyanne Conway put it last night, the biggest defense budget in U.S. history. I'm watching all this stuff and I'm thinking, what kind of an insane asylum are we living in? You don't know who to believe anymore. Even on our side. Here's Lindsey Graham. Now, I watched Hannity last night with that peculiar studio audience that he seems to like these days. Knowing Sean, there's a method to the madness. Maybe it rates well or something. I don't know. It's kind of fun, I guess, to see. It's an odd format to see a studio audience. It gives Sean a chance to take off his tie, I guess. Who do they have now? That Joey guy, that Joey Jackson is filling in for Tucker, and they fired Kennedy from Fox. Well, they demoted her. She had her 7 p.m. show every night on Fox Business. Now they're going to replace that with Larry Kudlow reruns. It's like, what? Why are you doing that? Why are they mad at Kennedy? They're making some weird decisions over at Fox these days. And Sean's studio audience, I mean, hey, I guess it kind of adds to a lighthearted atmosphere to serious topics. I don't know. Sean's a smart guy. Anyway, it was so bizarre. He's got Lindsey Graham on 1 minute railing against this debt ceiling bill or agreement. And then he's got Kellyanne Conway on, who says the exact opposite. You got to hear this. This is side by side. And I'll defer to you, the smart kids in the room, 1-800-655-MIKE, because I got to get your reaction to it. This is, you talk about strange bedfellows. I mean, again, we don't have the Senate. We don't have the White House. We have the House of Representatives. Biden promised he would not negotiate at all with Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy forced him to do so. And Kevin McCarthy extracted big concessions from the Democrats and the White House. That's why they're so angry. Democrats claim that Kevin McCarthy held Biden hostage. And you want to complain about this victory? Lindsey Graham sure does, and he did last night on Hannity on Fox News.
Well, my plan is to inform the American people that this budget deal is a disaster for the United States military. I like Kevin McCarthy. He's got a hard job. But he said this bill fully funds the military. I want your audience to know tonight that this bill is $42 billion short of matching inflation. This bill creates a smaller Navy at a time when the Chinese are going from 300 ships to 440. This bill puts us on track to go from 298 ships in our Navy to 291. It's the lowest spending per GDP on defense since World War II. This bill is a disaster for America. It is a big win for China. I'm going to be hell no. The number one job of the federal government is to defend this nation. I'm a Reagan Republican, and Ronald Reagan would never have done this at all. Put our Navy in decline as China is building up. So, Sean, I cannot tell you from a defense point of view, this bill is a disaster for the American military. If you think $42 billion under inflation is fully funding, then we're in the wrong party.
Okay, now, 5 minutes later, Here's Kellyanne Conway. She's plugged in too. She knows about this budget negotiation. She was the top advisor to Donald Trump. This is what she said moments after what you just heard from Lindsey Graham.
We have $28 billion more in defense spending than we did a year ago. And at $886 billion for defense spending, that is the largest defense budget in U.S. history. That is the largest defense budget in the world right now, they claim. We're clawing back some of the billions in COVID, maybe not everything we want to, but I think it's a start. I think two things are happening here. Number one, the world's a dangerous place, and our men and women in uniform deserve to be deeply respected and generously resourced.
Lindsey made a point about not keeping up with inflation.
Yeah, I understand. I'm looking at the
He's
numbers.
a hawk.
I get that.
We understand.
I do. I get that. And I think it's very easy to say what's missing. What I see in front of me is the best that we're going to get with Joe Biden in the White House, who's kind of absent from these negotiations right now. This augurs for why we need a Republican back in the White House to get a much better deal.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about head snapping. So Lindsey Graham calls it a disaster for America. Kellyanne Conway points out this bill has the largest defense budget in the history of America. $28 billion more in defense spending than a year ago. Now, in Lindsey Graham's world, since it's not keeping up with inflation, it's not enough. Ergo, it's the biggest disaster in the history of the country and in the history of the world. I mean, two things can't be true. This is wild. How Republicans like Senator Graham, who have a single issue, and I know people like this, they're focused and they're fixated on how many ships we have in the Navy. I get it. If I hear one more conversation about we got 283, we ought to have 287. I get it. I get it. I get it. We want a strong defense. We want a strong military. We have one. And Democrats threaten always to derail that. That's why we got to get a Republican elected next year for the presidency. That's why we got to get the Senate back. But to hear two smart people say such opposite things is astounding to me. So where are you on this? Do you even care? I get, you know what I get aggravated about? let me wear my heart on my sleeve. I get annoyed at the noise. Because all I heard yesterday was noise. Oh, this is awful. This is terrible. We got a primary Jim Jordan. You want a primary Jim Jordan? You want a primary Marjorie Taylor Greene? And incidentally, those are two warriors. Stephen Miller pointed that out as well. Before I take your calls, let me play one more clip, and then I promise I'll turn it over to you at 1-800-655-MIKE. You want to get rid of Jim Jordan? You want to get rid of Marjorie Taylor? Are you serious? Check out Stephen Miller last night on Fox News as well.
Kevin had an extremely difficult hand here with just the 4-seat majority in the House, without the Senate, without the White House. And this is a $2 trillion spending cut. And I will say, if you look at who is supporting it, he's got Jim Jordan and Marjorie Taylor Greene out there, two conservative warriors on his behalf fighting for this thing. So we'll see what ultimately happens, but I think that people need to focus on the fact that the way the conservatives are going to beat the left is by notching one win after another. Some will be bigger than not as big as we'd like. Some will be smaller than we'd want them to be. But then we come back in the appropriations process and we seal the border. We defund critical race theory. We demolish the deep state at the DOJ and in the intelligence and security states. So we come back again right here in September, and this time we dig even deeper. We push even harder, and we don't take no for an answer. Let's keep marching forward, Sean, on to the next battle.
Amen and amen and amen. Now, again, Steve Bannon, love the guy. I saw last night on social media, he thinks we need to get rid of Jim Jordan and Marjorie Taylor Greene over this. They need to be primaried. Bye-bye, Congressman Jordan. See you later, Marjorie Taylor Greene. You you supported a bill that didn't quite keep up with inflation and didn't give us Republicans everything we wanted. Wow.